opinion on these decks? We have Worldgorger combo and Mono Black control.
I am very excited. So Worldgorger combo is a deck that we've seen before in Legacy a lot. Generally speaking, this is a 2-card combo that involves playing the namesake card, Worldgorger Dragon, and then also a card like Animate Dead to bring Worldgorger Dragon back from your graveyard into play. Now, Worldgorger Dragon, this is like say 5 times fast. I promise it's not that easy. Worldgorger Dragon has the ability when it ETBs, exile all other permanents you control, and then when it leaves the battlefield, return the exiled cards to the battlefield under their owner's control. So what you're ending up trying to do is you play Animate Dead, you bring back your Worldgorger Dragon, that exiles the Animate Dead, right? When the Animate Dead gets exiled, the Worldgorger Dragon sacrifices and goes to the graveyard because of Animate Dead. But then Worldgorger Dragon's leaving, so the Animate Dead comes back into play. And then that'll target the Worldgorger Dragon, put that into play, and then exile the Animate Dead. When the dragon dies again, comes back, and you can see there's like a rinse and repeat loop here where the dragon is leaving and entering and leaving and entering. And what that means is every instance or iteration that happens, you get to proc all your ETB triggers. So the deck actually does play a lot of ETB triggers, and notably, Lord of the Rings has a really good ETB trigger that has absolutely impacted Legacy, and that is Orcish Bowmasters. So Orcish Bowmasters, when it ETBs, you ping your opponent for 1, you rinse and repeat with all the Worldgorger loops, and your opponent just dies. Notably, too, we're not playing older cards like Baleful Strix, so I think this deck got some pretty cool upgrades. I'm pretty excited to see how it plays out.
Now, this Mono Black control deck, it's trying to set up Helm of Obedience plus Leyline of the Void. Is that going to line up well against Worldgorger combo?
Oh, yeah. Leyline of the Void on turn 1 would be kind of a problem, mostly because we're also in like Grixis colors, and so we don't have a great way to handle enchantments. And that would actually kind of just cold it. You can see here, reading one of these cards, I think that might be Dance of the Dead. But in general, yeah, I think in general, the Leyline, very good here. The rest of the deck is also pretty powerful with access to cards like Dothy Voidwalker or Karn the Great Creator that you can put into play on turn 2, maybe tutor up like a Tormod's Crypt or something like that. It's going to be a pretty close match. Let's see how it plays out.
Yeah, speaking of which, this grief is going to be solved, and it looks like we have Lotus Petal, Thoughtseize, Dance of the Dead, and the One Ring as the picks here. So what might Brian be thinking is the most scary card in hand?
So, it looks like it's Thoughtseize, actually. I mean, the reality is that the hand from Strausman's side doesn't actually do too much just yet, but with a couple more turns, it could. And I think by taking the Thoughtseize here, this is a very clear indication that we've got something like really, what's the word that I'm looking for? Really like proactive that could potentially cause disruption here. And it looks like that's Orcish Bowmasters. Okay.
Yeah, it looks like we drew grief here. So, got rid of a Thoughtseize, but gained a grief. Call it the bug. Helm was the other card. It looks like Orcish Bowmaster is the pick. So just left with Helm in hand.
Okay, yeah, I mean, Helm is an interesting one. So Helm generally works with Leyline of the Void. So with Leyline of the Void in play, cards don't go to the graveyard, and then Helm of Obedience says you can tap to activate it and basically mill your opponent until they hit a creature. But because Leyline is pushing everything into the exile, this is a 2-card Monty combo where your opponent just mills out and you win the game.
Onark, how about we go Lotus Petal, Dark Ritual, Ancient Tomb, the One Ring on turn 1? Is that good? Was that good?
That's actually insane.
Is that powerful? I'm new here.
Welcome to my format, brother. This is crazy. I'm so in love with it. I haven't yet seen too much of the Ring in Legacy, but from the little that I've played it, I can promise you that this is the strongest value engine endgame that exists in the format. And to get this into play as fast as turn 1 is absurd.
Yeah, we're gonna see the Ring activate. Draw 2 more cards here for Shea. We have an Entomb in hand and a Chrome Mox. Dangerously close to this Worldgorger combo. Shea Strausman, someone you're not a stranger here on the tour, has got multiple top 8s. A lot of them in team events, actually. Carrying the team in various formats.
So it does look like the Dance of the Dead was exiled to the Grief. So we don't actually have the combo completely set up just yet. Entomb is going to be able to find something like Worldgorger Dragon. We'll have to see if we can draw into the last piece. But with the Ring in play, I think this is going to be just trivial matter. There's not really much that Cooper has going on that could really interact with this at this stage, I think.
And it looks like we're actually going to imprint Entomb onto Chrome Mox so that we can cast a hard cast Grief here. And there goes that Helm that we know is in hand. Last card in hand is another Takenuma. Oof, awkward.
Yeah, and that's a legend. Is that a legend? It's not a legendary land, right? So you can't put
It's a
both. Okay.
legendary land.
Oh, it is. Gross.
Yeah, and we're gonna see Brian pick up the cards. Shea has a turn, the ring going. Oh my goodness, that was so crazy on a rock. And Lee Webb just won in the middle seat as well in Rakdos Scam, beating out Tron. Maybe we can check out to Pioneer. Yeah, looks like we have Boros Convoke versus Rakdos Midrange up here. Pretty interesting matchup as well. We have a big battlefield. So Graveyard Trespasser and Misery Shadow on the left. And then we have a nice Convoker and Night Errant Vios and a bunch of 1/1s and Voldaren Epicure and Giant Killer and Thraben and Spectre.
Yeah, so let me ask you a couple questions here. Basically, the Boros Convoke deck. Now, this is a deck that popped out a couple weeks ago, like before the RC, I believe, in Dallas, and people were really afraid of it. But since then, I think it has sort of tempered down a little bit. What is this deck trying to do, and how does that impact the Rakdos midrange matchup?
So this deck is trying to flood the board early and then pay off for flooding the board. So might be a Convoke creature like Night Errant Eos we see him play, or Loxodon Smiter, or sorry, the Loxodon, or you have the Bushwhacker. So the Bushwhacker, you have all your creatures +1/+0 in haste. That gives you these big bursts. So we're putting just a bunch of bodies in play and then abusing that. And that's really what this deck's trying to do. So it is sort of a fast aggro deck where mono white mid-range in Pioneer has often been sort of this consistent aggro deck. So this deck looks to just explode on the battlefield early and, was sort of heralded as like the new best deck in Pioneer. And I think that's in part because there just weren't much sweepers in the format or a lot of spot moves that could handle all the little bodies. So we saw decks trying to use 2-mana kill spells on these cards. It just isn't an efficient battle. Now players have readapted. We see things like Rakdos Sacrifice sort of rise up and sort of keep these deck in check. But I think this is a solid deck that if ever the format moves back in that position where it isn't respecting it, it is one of the strongest decks in the format in those environments. It's just easily targetable.
Yep, I like to call this the Dredge effect, where like a deck like Dredge, when your opponents don't have sideboard cards, they, you absolutely roll them because it's just the mechanics are really just that powerful. But if your opponent does decide to one day wake up and be like, you know what deck I want to beat Dredge, you will have the worst matches of your life. And so I think it's kind of interesting how maybe that's exactly what happened, is because pre-RC, this deck was literally, the analogy was made that this was Hogak. And I think it's hilarious because, Hogak, that's like not something you just drop lightly, right? But adaptation, evolution has sort of shown that you can beat this deck. And it's really going to be interesting to see now. The Rakdos midrange side, this is a much fairer deck. What are we trying to do from the Rakdos side to perhaps get out of this situation? Because it looks like a pretty daunting board state. Got to start somewhere.
Yeah, so right now we're in a pretty good spot. So the main thing you want to do is you want to stop the early Blitzkrieg from the Boros deck and make it so that they can't just suicide attack in. So right now we can't just throw all these 1/1s under the bus in order to push damage to present lethal. And now we have these bigger creatures. So if you're a Ben fan and sort of Rakdos midrange homie, you want to try and get Shieldred on the board. That will make it so you start gaining life, pressuring their life total, and have a body they can't really attack through. So just right now, cards like Bone Crusher Giant, Shieldred, that's sort of what we're looking for to finish taking over this game. Right now, we have this Giant Killer tapping down some stuff, which is a little bit annoying for Ben, as we do see him decide to spend 2 mana to bump up the Shadow here. But it is not, an unlosable position here for Andy, although it does look like we did Fatal Push down the Giant Killer.
Okay, so it looks like we're slowly but steadily stabilizing Shieldred, maybe the kiss of death touch that we want to see in play from the Rakdos side of things. From Andy's side on Boros, are there any burn spells or like ways to cross the finish line? Like you'll typically see Lightning Bolt, but I think even in the modern version, like this deck doesn't play Lightning Bolt or anything like that. So what is Andy really drawing out to here?
Yeah, so the big thing that Andy's trying out to is actually Goblin Bushwhacker plus a large board. There's no burn spells in the deck, it's all creatures, but Bushwhacker gives +1/+0 to everything. So really, if you're Andy, you're kind of wanting like some Gleeful Demolitions, you want some more Night Errant, you want some Venerated Loxodon, so you just want to draw cards that either are big on their own or put a lot of bodies in play, so that on a turn we can just go boom, boom, give everyone +1/+0, and kind of attack for exact lethal. And with Ben at 12, that's not undoable, but it isn't super easy as well.
Okay, so you're saying basically all the payoff cards is what we're looking for here. Night Errant of Eos, Venerated Loxodon, and then Gleeful Demolition and Goblin Bushwhacker is a nice little like 1-2 punch over there. That's interesting. There's actually one copy of a card that I've never seen before. It's called Regal Leosaur. What does this card do? Red and a white to mutate. Okay. I don't think this is
Yes.
the.
So
Yeah.
this is Regal Leosaur is one of the ways we could get out of this. So
Oh,
you
really?
mutate
Okay.
onto a creature, yeah, and when you do, all of your creatures get +2/+1. So this is sort of a mini version of Goblin Bushwhacker. And it's just
Exciting.
also a body. Yeah. So as we see here, actually, Giant Killer to kill the Graveyard Trespasser that was on the Glutton side, and then discard a card from our hand. And now we're just attacking for 4, sort of starting this race for Ben. And this is kind of what Andy needed. You know, we need a way to get rid of that creature and then push damage.
Okay, cool.
And we're going to get
So
a kill spell here.
yeah, we'll see. This game is pretty close and down to the wire. Legacy players are shuffling up here. We'll stick here for a little bit longer just to see if Ben is able to draw into something here to maybe stabilize the board. Castle Lockthwain is the draw. This is 6 mana.
Yeah, so Ben just attacks the shadow and pumps it 6 times, putting Andy down to 3.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay, I
he's
did not
just
see
making this a race.
That's not what I was expecting.
Now, we do see Andy here discarding to blood. He has a Bushwhacker in hand on a rock. If he draws a 1 or a 2 drop, he is going to be able to present lethal this turn.
Does he have it?
Oh, he has the Leosaur mutate on, and then that's going to be +2/+1 to all the bodies. That's 8 damage. Let's head over to Legacy because Ben is dead as the team of Strauss, Lane, and Webb are all up 1-0 in a commanding position.
Okay, that's pretty exciting, and almost as exciting as seeing Ancient Tomb with Leyline of the Void in play on turn 1 here. Something I wanted to also highlight here, this Worldgorger combo, in addition to playing new cards like Orcish Bowmasters, I actually didn't really hearken too much on this, but this is not a blue-red version. Wait, this is not the usual Grixis version. This is it features Ancient Tombs, which is actually really cool to help power out the rings and Shieldreds and things like that. I do see Swamp, Scrubland, Underground Sea, so maybe for some like sideboard cards and things like that. This is much more of a stompy styled version, and I'm kind of about it as, yeah.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of mono black combo going on here. And there's a little bit of confusion here. So looks like Shea floated a black mana, cast the Orcish Bowmaster, and we were just making sure we couldn't hit the Karn because the Karn's in the stack, because that's how we popped the Lotus Petal. But yeah, no, it seems like, you know, I play a lot of Elves, Death and Taxes, and 4-color piles. That's kind of what I do in Legacy on a Rock. So these black combo decks have seemed really impressive to me, where it's like in the last couple of weeks, we saw at our last NRG 2 mono black combo decks, like what Brian Cooper here copied at our event, did really well. We saw Dykeman also, I believe, get a top 16 with it. That's really impressive. And then now we have these other mono black shells. Is Dark Ritual combo stuff just been underrated for a while in Legacy and it's finally coming back?
I think really what it is here, as we're drawing Animate Dead for turn, the quality of the threats in these stompy styled shells over time has gotten significantly better, to the point where we don't even need to like lock into red or white or whatever. We can actually like touch into black here. So the printing of cards like Shieldred, I mean, also Orcish Bowmasters, and even the Ring is just fantastic for this deck. One thing I'll also say is, like, and just to give you like paint a picture, right? Like back in 2016, when I was doing coverage of like Grand Prix Chiba, there was a new deck that had just hit the block, right? And the kids called it Dragon Stompy, which is kind of alluding back to like an older version of the Dragon Stompy with like Rakdos, Pit Dragon, whatever. And it was basically like literally like Thundermaw Regents and other 4 or 5 mana dragons in the deck. And so you can sort of see how like over time, like that deck had got completely just like skewed apart. You know, you start throwing planeswalkers in there like Chandra, then there's Goblin Rabble Master, and then the Bugbear. And so like when I say that the threats in these Stompy decks have gotten like progressively better over time, like you know, mono black Stompy used to play like cards like Contamination, right? Like the stuff that like you just like isn't really playable. And now today we've sort of reached like a Super Saiyan 3 version of the deck, where it's like we've got these Orcish Bowmasters, we've got, you know, Grief and other elements of fire. Atraxa is another really cool one. So I'm really, really excited to see the sort of evolution over time. I think it speaks great stories.
Yeah, it really does. As we do see here, the Karn actually weirdly takes up not anything they want. As we're going to see a Bowmaster actually shoot down the opposing army token. And then I think Shea conceded.
Yeah. So next turn, what actually happens is Cooper gets to downtick the Karn, goes down to 3. We tutor up a Helm of Obedience from the sideboard, and then we just play it for 4 mana, activate it for 1 with the Leyline in play. This is going back to that combo that we were talking about, which is just instantly exiling your opponent's entire deck. So yeah, Legacy, these decks, they move fast pace. And I'm glad that we got to see like a little bit of it here and there. Let's check out Modern though.
Yeah, jumping in the middle of here, it looks like Scam versus Tron with Tron online, but Blood Moon in play.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a small little asterisk there. Is that online true? But oh, okay, this is great. All right. So here you said you were really good at this, right? Promo card check time. What is the as is gonna scoop it up and Rakdos Scam is gonna take it. There were 2 of one of the Tron lands. What was that Tron land?
Oh, I'd have to see it in play. I'm pretty sure I would guess though, because I know it wasn't Tower. So I'm gonna go with mine.
Okay.
All the games are shuffling. So come on, look at us. Look at us. Let's talk about some future events.
I'll have Twitch chat be the judge, jury, and executioner of that one based on because you said that I mean you didn't actually get to see them, so maybe we'll put like 2 asterisks next to your undefeated record there, but we'll see which one that was. But yeah, it's pretty exciting here. So I think like overall game counts, we're looking at 1-1 in Legacy. We might be 1-0 leading for Rakdos and Pioneer, and
I believe it's over for Rakdos because they were already up a game before.
That's in Modern though. Rakdos in Modern one, right?
Oh, sorry, my bad. Yes,
okay,
sorry, my bad. I misheard.
Right.
Yeah.
So we still have a little bit more Pioneer and potentially an exciting game 3 here for Legacy. Now maybe let's talk about the Pioneer matchup a little bit because I think for Legacy it's mostly like 2 stompy decks kind of like smashing heads at each other. Let's actually like dive right in, and maybe you can give me some insight here. Boros Convoke against the Rakdos deck. We saw a pretty crazy lethal swing here with the Regal Leosaur. How does this change going into game 2?
So the Rakdos midrange decks, it depends on how many really sweepers they have. They should have a bunch, which means that because of decks like this and mono green, we see things like a bunch of extinction events, and that makes it so that the players are able to actually keep up. They just need to not die early. So we're seeing Ben here lead on this Blood Tithe Harvester, and that's going to make it so we can't actually attack with the Thraben Inspector. Having this pressure and these bodies is really good because bodies are essentially removal spells. And we just need, as the Rakdos player, to hope things like this don't happen, where there's Gleeful Demolition into another 1-drop into a Convoke creature. Those kind of draws are going to be the things that take over the game.
Okay, that makes sense here. And so we're going to see, what is this, the turn to Blood Tithe Harvester. And that's honestly, like for a deck that is as explosive as Boros Convoke, it seems kind of interesting to me that simply putting like an X2 into play is enough to like stymie the aggression enough where you could actually survive. I think curving out with creatures honestly like means that you may not even need to worry about, are we attacking?
Yeah, it looks like we maybe have a follow-up creature, and so we're just getting our 3 points in because as Ben, you don't want to sit there forever because things like last game can happen where they sort of go around you or push through in a burst turn. And so it looks like we're actually just going to use Stomp to answer the white creature and sort of make it a little bit harder to Convoke out. And we have a Fatal Push too. We could Fatal Push a Goblin so that if we're stuck on lands, we could not get out something like the Loxodon. Although with the land play tap last turn, you have to assume there wasn't a Venerated Loxodon in hand already.
Ethical question, what is that promo art?
That's Thraben Inspector from the RCQs.
Yeah, he knew. All right, cool. I tried, chat. We're gonna see if we can stump him real quick. Maybe in Legacy, if there's a promo that comes up, that's where I'll be like cackling. Mr. Burns, like my fingers up all in it. But all right, so it looks like there was a Fatal Push. Good call on that. That's gonna take care of the Giant Killer.
Yeah, and now we see Extinction at the pickup here for Ben. If he has the 4th land, naming odd here will answer half of it. Naming even will answer the Goblin. So we might see a sack of the Blood Tithe, kill the Bushwhacker, name even, get all the tokens. But we might also just be missing on lands. And this is something that can't happen here for the Rakdos deck is the pressure might come down too quickly. And we have some stuff going on there.
Okay, well, it seems like this board state is significantly more stable than what we were looking at the end of game number 1 here. So I would surmise that so long as we don't miss our land drop for too many turns in a row, we'll be able to sort of gum up the board. I think, like you mentioned before, some of the cards that are really terrifying are the Venerated Loxodons and the Knight Errant of Eos and additional copies of Goblin Bushwhacker. So yeah, we'll see how this game plays out. It looks like Legacy is going into game 3, and I'm pretty sure we will be able to conclude that one quite quickly. So let's dive over there real quick and then aim to come back for Pioneer if that match continues on.
Yeah. It looks like Shea. Let's go back. Let's go. They're mulliganing. Both players are.
Okay.
Let's just head back to when the match starts. coverage will just throw us in there once they start playing cards.
That
But
is
for
a
now,
great idea. I like that. Yeah. When the first
yeah,
line
as we
comes
do see
down into
Bone
play.
Crusher Giant just hard cast.
So yeah, that's kind of interesting, right? Like we don't really have a way to go through it, and we can't really go under it anymore. So we have to go
Gotta go around.
like around
Gotta
and
go the
over
long way around, like the doctor did, as we have wedding announcement in hand.
it. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, wedding announcement is a pretty good way to do this as well, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a card that we see all the white decks sort of use as their plan versus Rakdos. Generates a lot of bodies and then anthems all your creatures. So this is a really good way to sort of, get a bunch of bodies and then have them push through that damage that we talked about before. It's sort of a one card do all in the matchup.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that also like tracks with, yeah, so you can see wedding festivity there. Creatures you control get +1/+1. The interesting thing here is that this is sort of like an admission that we can't really keep up with Rakdos at parity, like on a fair basis. So we actually, or on an aggressive basis rather, right? Because this is a very fair card, generating a lot of value, is playing a different style of game than that sort of explosive start that you were talking about before.
Mm-hmm.
All right. But this is a really good play here. Shieldred just going to come down here. And, with one of the giant killers already taken care of, I wonder if we even have any more outs that we can deal with.
I think we have 2 in this deck. I was looking earlier. I might be mistaken. We actually have 3 giant killers. So
Okay.
Andy here, not playing the Burning Tree Emissary, it looks like. Instead has Dragantha as a companion and has a bunch of giant killers and Clarion Spirits and all that sort of stuff.
Well, if the board looked really bad on turn 2 with the 3/2 Blood Tithe Harvester in play, I gotta say it certainly definitely looks worse now with the Bone Crusher in play and a Shieldred in play. Drawing a card here, losing 2 life from the Shieldred passive. And I mean, this is utter dominant control here. I mean, the board is just too gummed up.
Yeah, right now, if we draw something like the Regal Sword, we might be able to push through for close to lethal on the following turn, but we probably needed something like Night Errant up Eos on this turn in order to actually find those cards and do that. And this deck really leans on those Convoke creatures to sort of find the other ones or to push through the extra damage here. So it's not done for sure. We have Shepherd Dunes in play for Andy Lane, so that is a +1/+1 to the whole team in the mana base. So in 2 turns that can happen. We'll come back to that in a bit, as it does look like Shea's going low spell Dark Ritual.
Dark Ritual. Oh.
Thoughtseize. Is Shea targeting himself? Is this a Worldgorger from my hand to the grave?
That would be kind of funny. Also, it'd just also be hilarious if it's just like pass or something like that.
And looks like a Dothy Voidwalker, an Aghanim's Awakening flipped over on the land side, and the agent confiscation agent.
Opposition agent. Yeah, that one's a terrifying one as well. Okay. Yeah. Honestly, none of these cards are really, really scary, but if I had to guess, I would suggest that Dothy Voidwalker is more aligned with disrupting your Worldgorger game plan, so getting rid of that is not unreasonable. But then also, opposition agent can just like climb you out of scenarios that you have no business losing. Like imagine opposition agent in response to an entomb or something, right? That could be kind of cool. So
yep, and it does look like opposition agent is going to be the pick. Maybe Shea worried about something like that. We do have 2 black mana left in the pool with 2 cards in hand, so looks like Orcish Bowmaster is the play.
Well, okay, this is kind of cool. I'm just going to say it. Look, mono lands, as Shea has got 1 card left in hand, and Orcish Bowmaster in place, so... this is going to be a slugfest. I'll tell you this right now.
Yeah, and it looks like Brian... It's taking a think. Maybe drew something he could play here. Was the Crowbox might have turn 1 Dothy?
Okay. And it is, yeah. Turn 1 Dothy Voidwalker off the back of a top deck Chrome Mox. Now, this does not bode so well for Shea, but we did find a land, so we might be able to do it. The problem is, we're just attacking.
Yes, Dothy can't block the shadow.
Okay. I got you.
Yep.
Yeah, combat math is not my thing, so thank you.
No, you're good. One day we'll get you there on a rog.
It's going to be very, very far in the future here as... Let's see, Takanuma firing back. Okay, this is all elementary stuff. It basically is going to boil down to some exciting top decks, but the Dothy Voidwalker kind of blocking off any like backdoor win conditions like Entomb into Animate Dead is a pretty big deal here.
Yes, we do see an attack for 2. Attack back for 3. Live totals will be updated in a second here. I believe Brian Cooper is at 16 and Shea is at 14.
+2 from the Thoughtseize, so probably like 12.
Oh, yeah, 12 on Shea there. Good call.
And I think we can understand now why, based on how this game played out, that we took the opposition agent instead of the Dothy Voidwalker, right? The risk of a Dark Ritual into opposition agent on turn 1 turns off all potential top decks here in flooded in fetch lands, and just us not having mana sources outside of the Lotus Petal is kind of a big deal. So that does paint a picture more clearly, yeah.
Also, this Dothy getting the 2 lands under it, Brian has cards like Karn and Helm in hand, like in deck. You might end up cracking one in order to get those in play. I don't know if his deck plays the ring, but it might as well. Like 4 mana is sort of a choke point here, and Brian doesn't seem to have any lands. As we are going to play, ooh, well.
Serenity is kind of an interesting one to keep in here. Now, this isn't. I mean, right now on this board state, it only actually impacts the Chrome Mox. So you can see Serenity on the screen here at the beginning of your upkeep, destroying all artifacts and enchantments. They can't be regenerated, but I'm sure the real purpose of this is to actually handle cards like Helm of Obedience, for example, or any sort of cards that are coming in off of the Karn. Yeah, Leyline of the Void is another really good one.
We're going to see a Dothy attack back here. Just a little ABC magic.
Speaking of which, I think there is a copy of Helm of Obedience in the hand there for Brian Cooper.
Now, that's going to go under the Dothy, Shea now could get Serenity back. Looks like Shea just like, yeah, attacking for 2 again.
I guess we do have some outs here because one Dothy Voidwalker. Oh, no, there are no Dothy Voidwalkers in the Worldgorger list. So we're probably going to just have to... Oh, wait, actually, do we just not have outs to this card? Our only removal spell in the 75 appears to be Snuff Out, and that can't kill black creatures. So we're just racing.
Yeah, I guess we have to draw Orcish Bowmaster and hope that Brian has some way to draw a card and then just flash in response, get the ping, get the trigger, get the ping. But I don't know how else you're supposed to do it.
Yep, Shieldred is another card that we could look to top deck to maybe help a little bit, but oof, that is that's hilarious. I should have realized this earlier. Wait, this game is going to be just much more of like a draft game than anything else, huh?
Yeah, it's 2 very impactful modern sets against each other. Lord of the Rings on the right, Modern Horizons 2 on the left. Who will win? As we do see Brian consulting with a teammate here. Honor, you told me that this would be a very fast game. Now, how's it feel to have the shoe on the other foot? As we do see Karn come down off Ancient Tomb. Hello.
Okay, Karn is a doozy here. So Karn, let's see what some of the Karn targets are here. See a Wormcoil Engine, Mycosynth Lattice, Helm of Obedience. There's a copy of the One Ring in the sideboard. That could actually be really good as well. What did he... Oh, we ticked up with the card. Interesting. Okay.
Huh, yeah. I guess just wanting to,
because that works with Dothy Voidwalker as well, doesn't it? If you get Helm of Obedience with Dothy Voidwalker in play, that might just be a win right there.
Oh, yes, that would be a win. I see what you're saying. Yes.
Okay. Which means this might just be lethal here. Mono Black Control putting up another impressive performance.
Yeah, I mean, Mono Black Control deck has really impressed me in all the games here. So we just Animate Dead, and I can hear so many people in the background so excited by this. As opposition agent enters the battlefield for Shea, I don't think that does much.
Okay. Yeah, opposition agent won't interact with the Karn down ticking to find Helm of Obedience here. So what we actually need is for Brian to just not have another mana source, but we're also at...
Oh, Shieldred!
Wow.
Oh,
okay.
Just combat damage goes the distance, and wow. Okay, that's going to make Game 3 matter a bunch here in Rakdos Midrange versus Boros Convoke. Let's throw it up there. That was a crazy game on our... I'm really impressed with this Mono Black deck.
I am as well. A lot of like micro synergies, and okay, whoa, we're walking into a lot here. So Mason, catch me up with what's going on, because I remember when we left, there was
yeah, so don't worry, Honorog. The bus is coming for me. I'll give the players the play-by-play update here. As we do see, the wedding announcement has flipped. Everything +1/+1. We have a Giganta, a bunch of tokens. It looks like a Reckless Bushwhacker came down at some point during all of this. We still haven't popped the Sheffet Dunes, and we have a Din the Bugbear with a Knight Errant in hand. Meanwhile, on Rakdos' side, we have 2 Bone Crushers, a Shieldred, a Graveyard Trespasser, and a Blood Tithe Harvester. Can't really attack, even though Andy's at 4, because everything can get blocked so easily and can also maybe get swung back on here. So Andy has about 1 turn before the Shieldred ends up killing him. Needs to draw a card like Giant Killer, and has Knight Errant of Eos to actually maybe find the Giant Killer by convoking. Okay. Looks like he's only convoking 3 from what I can tell. So he won't be able to find another Knight Errant. Curious to see if maybe that could have been a play there.
That was a Thraben Inspector and something else.
Oh, that's a Giant Killer. We can
kill the
so
we're in it?
We're in it, yeah.
Oh, let's go.
Oh my goodness. And yeah, Andy Lane here starting to stabilize just a little bit. I think we can even play the Giant Killer this turn, which is some pretty real game. Now, there's a Spirit in play from the Clarion Spirit. That is actually a flying creature. So with that 2/2, we can actually start attacking Ben down a little bit. And it doesn't seem like much, but like we saw last game, we can get across for exact lethal pretty easily with this deck. And this is what I love about the Boros Convoke deck on Rog. It gets on board. It's really sticky and has a lot of play to it, even when things seem like they're over. You know, when we left it seemed pretty rough for the Convoke deck, but it just has some draws that are totally nutty and explosive. And if you don't have the right cards, you're going to lose.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's like in any sort of aggro deck that you're looking for. One of the key elements is like you just want resiliency. Like if your deck is going to fold completely to whether or not your opponent has like a Supreme Verdict or something like that, you really need to reevaluate like how good the aggressive draws are. In this situation, I love that you're sort of explaining to me that, you know, this deck has value. It can play a longer game. Admittedly, that's not what it wants to be doing, but if it gets into that position, that is a Giganta just in play and attacking. So, yep, I see where we are now, and cool that you could, you know, this Boros Convoke deck has that angle to it as well.
Yeah, and it looks like we're offering this Giganta attack maybe because we can get tricky with the Giant Killer. Although I imagine you can't get too tricky since, you know, Bone Crusher Giant will deal you 2 damage and you'll die to the Shieldred, but it looks like it's going to take 6.
Wow.
So we're going to see Thraben Inspector as the cast return. Yeah, and I wonder if Andy is going to let Ben get the 2 life, or if he's going to chop down now and cast the Giant Killer. It's a tough play. And it looks like, yeah, he's just going to pass the turn and let Ben. I mean, if you untap, you probably let them gain the 2 so they don't get legend ruled. Oh, and there's an Extinction Event in hand. But that Extinction Event also gets some of Ben's board.
Okay, this is interesting. Oh, wait, so maybe let's break it down. Extinction Event gets rid of what on odd from both sides? It gets rid of the Giganta, right?
Gets rid of Giganta, the Bushwhacker, and the 1-drop, and the Knight Errant, and then gets rid of the Bone Crusher Giants and the Graveyard Trespasser. So that would be leaving us with just the Blood Tithe Harvester, so we know it's probably going to die. If we name even, Blood Tithe dies, but we can sacrifice that ahead of time in order to kill something like the Bushwhacker or maybe a Thraben Inspector, and we get rid of all the tokens, which would actually leave us pretty close to killing Andy, because if you go Blood Tithe Harvester, get rid of the odd-costed Bushwhacker, name even, clean up all the tokens, you're going to lose your Shieldred as well, but then you have 3 lethal attackers.
Okay, so this is interesting too, because like Shieldred seems pretty interesting here. I mean, it seems pretty powerful, like to sort of gum up the board. Is it okay to let it go?
I think so there's a Din of the Bugbear in play, so that can actually animate to block, so it's not lethal here for Andy. I think if there wasn't that blocker there, this would be a play worth doing, because Andy would actually just be like basically dead and would need to have some sort of flash creature, which you know Andy doesn't have. But the Din of the Bugbear means we won't die, and then we'll probably die on the crack back. So Ben's in this really awkward spot because his Shieldred is dead no matter what he does.
To the Giant Killer, right?
Yeah, to the Giant Killer. So the real question is, can Ben get a chump block in order to try and trick him into not having a new Shieldred played?
That's an interesting thing. Okay, so the way you asked that question, I'm actually kind of trying to think about it. Like, how would you even go about making something like that happen? Like, is that seems pretty tricky, right? Like to convince, like, you know, like when Luis did like the token trick with the Settle the Wreckage or whatever. Like, is that the kind of magic we're trying to play now? Like, really just get into our opponent's head?
I mean, I think we are trying to trick our opponent into letting Shieldred like stick around until the actual end step. But it looks like we're just going to pop the blood and discard Hive of the Eye Tyrant and get a redraw. And now this does force, yeah, Andy is here, has to make a choice whether to give him the 2 life or the potential. Ben could draw a Shieldred here, which would be huge. Looks like he drew some black card, but not Shieldred. Extinction Event, and I think Graveyard Trespasser number 2.
Okay. So now that with that information at your disposal now, does Extinction Event get better or worse to cast now? Is there a world where we just don't even cast it this turn and we wait till next turn after playing something?
I think it's a little bit better to cast now just because it removes the attackers, and I think you want to get rid of this stuff so that you can't get attacked back on. Looks like Noxious Grasp was the draw. I do think if Ben is going to attack Extinction Event, he maybe needed to use the Blood Tides Harvester before popping the blood, although it's all very confusing and hard to know, but it looks like Odd was the name, and that's going to get rid of all of Ben's creatures. Oh, it looks like maybe Even is the name. Okay.
Yeah. Odd, because Odd would have been real rough there, right?
Yeah. Sorry, he picked up his Gigantha, so I thought he was naming Odd, but he is naming Even. So that's going to leave us with most of the creatures that are actually cards in play, and all the tokens are going to get cleaned up. So the board state's going to be a lot more readable for you at home.
Okay, I got you. So there's a Bushwhacker, and that's where I stop because I'm kidding. A Thraben Inspector, the Knight Errant of Eos, and also the Gigantha. So this looks like a pretty damning board state here from the Boros Convoke side of things. I mean, 1 card left in hand. We lost our Shieldred, but Andy Lane is at 4, so maybe there's hope.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out exactly. So, remember, all of Andy's creatures are +1/+1 from the wedding announcement at the top of the screen. We have the end of the Bugbear. We drew another wedding announcement, which is actually kind of huge. It means we can keep attacking with like this Gigantha. And then now our board presence is going to rebuild. And this is what I was talking about. You have to work towards killing Andy. You can't actually like control this deck enough as the Rakdos midrange deck. It looks like, Andy's sizing up, maybe activating this Den of the Bugbear too to get a little bit of extra power in.
And that's actually a really interesting point that you mentioned. I think one of the reasons that I find this deck particularly interesting is like I was playing against this deck in Modern, and I'm sure the play pattern also appears in Pioneer as well. But the chip damage from all these like 1-power weenies that you don't really want to spend a card on, it adds up. And so then you get into these situations too where not only does it add up, but then you can even convert it into larger advantages. So I think I largely agree with you. Like the mentality in this matchup really just has to be like not just the in terms of like stabilizing the board, but also just like we need to turn sideways and find ways to win. So speaking of, in terms of ways to win, how can Ben pull out this game as a second wedding announcement comes into play?
So we have a couple ways. We can like Shieldred to start picking away because Andy is at 4. We could draw another Graveyard Trespasser to ping and then into a Bone Crusher Giant. We could draw running Bone Crusher Giants. Those are the ways. As we are going to see here, Andy only attacked for 1, notably just 1 creature. That way we actually get the token and set up the pop Shepherd Dunes next turn for this huge push of damage because we are threatening lethal on the next turn. And Ben has a draw. If it was, I think it's another Graveyard Trespasser, which might put Ben up to 10, maybe even 11 if he does have double.
Is that going to be enough here? These complicated board states. Okay, let's see. So wedding announcement is giving everything +1/+1. The Dunes is also. You guys can't see it, but for everyone at home, Mason is like doing that finger counting thing right now, which is great. I need somebody who can do that because I cannot. Shepherd Dunes also gives some amount of power and toughness as well.
So I think we're a little short next turn because right now basically we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 attackers. If we activate the Shepherd Dunes and we don't draw a land, then we can't activate Bugbear. If we draw the land, we have the Bugbear as well. Then if we had the 2 blockers from Ben, that's 5 blockers on 5 blockers, which means only 3 power creatures get across. I think they're both Graveyard Trespassers, which means we'd be at 1 life. I'm sorry, 2 life. So I think Ben has just enough to stay alive. And if Ben has enough to stay alive, he only needs creatures from the graveyard on Arog, and then he can attack with his Graveyard Trespasser and exile the last ones and get across the finish line. So he might see Ben do something like attack with Graveyard Trespasser, exile your Thraben Inspector, make a trade happen, and then do something like that. Now, the 5/5 Knight might not just eat it, but that could be a play we see on a future turn as well, as we do have Graveyard Trespasser number 2 putting Ben up to 10 life. And
all right,
notably
Twitch
in
chat,
game 3.
pop quiz. What was the first thing that Mason said for this play? This is it. Who's been paying attention, and also for anyone else who's been able to track this, like really impressive analysis there. Actually, I think it's pretty powerful here.
I think it's Noxious Grasp is Ben's last card, by the way.
Okay. So let's see how Andy chooses to line up the attacks here as we're positioning. This is the sort of, and so like keeping in mind that with the game this close, Andy is at 3. A single incorrect attack will decide not just the result of this match, but the result of the entire team's fate. So we need to make sure we do things right. We need to slow it down a little bit. Pause it. Okay, wait, what was that? Why'd you do that?
Because the draw was Voldaren Epicure, which is a ping. So there's 1 damage that Ben might think he's going to 1 on a block and then die to the Voldaren.
Oh my god, I want to see it happen. Please. So just to understand this correctly, if Andy animates the entire board, like with the Den of the Bugbear or whatever, and then just alpha strikes, like is that it?
I think it's almost not enough because the Den gets blocked and all the big creatures get blocked, right? And so then we have a 2/2, a 2/2, a 2/3, and a 2. So that would be 8 damage, I believe, would come through, and we would trade most of the board off. Now, the trading the board is actually really good if you're Andy, because if you trade the board, that means the ability to attack with the Graveyard Trespasser to set up the lethal is much harder. Now, Andy doesn't know there's a Noxious Grasp in hand, but...
Well, this looks like money moves one way or another, right? Like, we're tapping a bunch of stuff here. I think Giganta is being tapped for mana?
Well, Giganta can only be tapped, I think, cast mana. Maybe it is activated as well. I'm not 100%.
Yeah, let's double check that.
Excuse me.
It's just tense. This is so tense.
Yeah, it looks like really close here. Sheffitunes is popped. Unclear to me if this is actually more damage than just attacking with the Giganta, but Andy seems to think so. As it is important to note that the Goblin token that comes in off the attack trigger will be 1 less than the other ones because it does not see the Sheffitunes being popped.
All right, all of these creatures are in play and attacking. Let's see how the blocks lined up. You said it would be pretty simple, right? Big creatures go in front of big creatures. And
yeah,
you could definitely see it too, right? With the 1 mana left over, I wonder if Andy Lane is going to be able to steal this game through the sneakiest of top decks. That would be incredible.
Yeah, I think Ben might be really closer to stealing it too, though, because Ben has the Noxious Grasp in hand, which will kill the Knight Errant. That's going to save us a huge chunk of life, and it gains us exactly 1 life as well. So it counteracts the Voldaren.
Ooh, okay. Wait, this is getting better and better and better. Okay, hold up.
Yeah,
I am unreasonably excited now for the outcome of this game. What?
So currently, it's lethal is hitting Ben because the Knight Errant is a 6 power and these are 3 powers. We know we're pretty sure there's a removal spell in hand. I think it's Noxious Grass. It might be Power Word Kill, but that won't be lethal. And Ben, though, weirdly, is going to lose all of his creatures except that 1 Graveyard Trespasser Honorog. So there'll be 1 creature left in play, and that's enough to attack and maybe present lethal.
Wow. Just wow. We might be going into a game 3 here?
Yeah, and time is going to be of the essence, too, in game number 3. Because, you're 3-0. Getting a draw doesn't mean your tournament's dead, but it does make it a lot harder. Ben is going to take, I believe, 6 damage, and a bunch of these creatures die, right? They're all super big. Yeah, they got to clean up here. The 1 Graveyard Trespasser, I believe, lives because of the weakened state of the thing. And that's looks to be lethal if there are the 2 alive because Ben just fell to 2 life, I believe. Yeah, and Voldaren Epicure puts him to 1. So Noxious Grass had to be the kill spell there. And Ben Stewart is, and we're getting a draw trigger from the wedding announcement. Where the Ben Stewart is going to attack and then go to game number 3 here. Yeah.
That is so sweet. I mean, first of all, Amazing, well done. Like being able to like parse all of that nonsense. Because I was kind of just looking at it. I was like, "Hey, Mason, you just got my back." But that's a crazy, crazy way to break through. Like one trump card over the other, like the Epicure versus the Noxious Grasp. So we actually have a treat for Twitch chat. We've got deck lists this time around. So why don't we go ahead and throw up the first deck list, looking at the Boros Convoke deck, and this is going to give us a general sense of what the deck looks like. But more importantly, let's clock in on these sideboard cards. How would you sideboard in this matchup? We've already seen the wedding announcements come in. Is there anything else that is particularly impressive in this sideboard?
Yeah, Unbreakable Formation, that's going to be that card right above Wedding Announcement. Is really strong. If you cast it in your main phase, all your creatures get +1/+1 Vigilance, and I believe Indestructible as well. That's just a really good way to alpha in. We've talked about the model of this matchup is you get on board early, you get some chip shots, then you can invoke out a big creature, then you alpha. And that is sort of what that card allows you to do as another sort of quicker version of a one-off Wedding Announcement. So that's going to be really good. We might see some Thalias just because you're on the play. It looks like they're playing really quickly, so let's hop back to the main feature match area. We know that for Rakdos, it's just a bunch of kill spells on the sideboard, but Andy has a couple different options. Curious to see the direction he takes it.
Okay.
Thalia on the play is strong, as you know, Anurag.
he did me like that. Damn. All right. So I'm curious to see like what exactly the total gameplay is going to look like. There are only 7 minutes in the round, so you'll see this is not some sort of magical time editing video thing like that. No, Ben is just shuffling that quickly, understanding that we need to get through this game because a draw is not worth it. So taking a look at Ben's deck list right here, Rakdos Midrange in the sideboard. You mentioned a couple kill spells. I see 3 copies of Extinction Event and the Noxious Grasps. That must be it, right?
Yeah, we might see a Braid. It depends on you don't really want your Thoughtseize are fine. They're not as good on the draw, and your Croxes are pretty bad. So I imagine those 6 for the 6 kill spells are going to come in. As we do see a Legion's Landing off the Sacred Foundry. And we might see some fast and loose stuff like this. Like the player didn't tap the land, but everyone knows it's Pioneer. There are no free spells. We're just moving quickly as an Ender Ellenbogen Vampire hits the battlefield.
Yeah, I like this. I like playing for time. It's one of those situations too where like the board state was so gummed up earlier that like you can't really be upset at the players for trying to think things out and make sure that we didn't make any mistakes, because otherwise we may not have been able to cross for lethal there from the Rakdos side. And so this is a good start. Legion's Landing in this matchup seems like it's a good place to be at.
Interesting. No follow-up play. I wonder if this Boros Convoke deck is the one that plays the Flash creature. That might be the case. I'm going to take a little peek. As it is. Aha! Surprise. Okay. Resolute Reinforcements.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, and that's a card we've seen a lot of players. You play this instead of Burning Tree. It lets you get Giganta. It gives you a lot of bodies for 1. And it gives you a little flash play against some of the other rafts in the format. So in the mid game, your creature actually can give you a little bit of play. So this one we have Ornithopter, which probably means we have some power card. You typically want to hold that for either a Bushwhacker or a Convoke creature. And it looks like we are going to go Knight Errant of Eos. We're going to take a look at top 6 and grab a 3-drop or less, 2 of them, and put it in hand.
This is really interesting. Ben actually cast Stomp on the Resolute Reinforcements. What was the reason for that? I mean, trading Stomp for a 1/1?
Trying to stop the Convoke from happening. If Andy didn't have another land for turn or didn't have a 0-drop, we wouldn't be able to Convoke this out unless it was another 2-body card. Okay. Or a Gleeful Demolition. So really just playing around that and just getting that off the board.
Fascinating here. So Knight Errant of Eos is now in play. Looking at a bunch of cards here, we convoked 1, 2, 3. So that means we can okay, so we're picking up, is that a Giant Killer and a Thraben Inspector?
Yep. Okay. Same 2 we got last time. And it looks like we have a Den the Bugbear in hand, so I might be not surprised to see Andy say Den the Bugbear past the turn, not worried too much about anything else. It looks like we do have a Sacred Foundry as well, so we're going to cast the Thraben Inspector. Sure, makes sense. Can't activate the Den next turn anyways. As you see his teammate throw him the token. Pass the turn. We got to get in combat. We're going to be 4-0, baby.
Yeah, I know. I feel you on that. 19 to 19 are the life total, so there is some work to be done. But what you're mentioning earlier is that the Boros Convoke deck, it seems like Andy has been playing the entire match with the idea of going wide and then bushwhacking, his opponent in the face. So let's see if this is how the game plays out here. Fable unplay for now, Ben, on turn 3. That was a sentence.
Yeah, and Resolute Spirit in hand for Andy. That's going to be a card that lets him rebuild against these Extinction events. Looks like you were just going to attack with the Knight Errant for now. There's some in a world where you want to maybe just throw away your creatures to flip the Legion's landing. You can just attack with everything, lose a single creature, and then get the flip landing. That gives you more mana to do things like Dim the Bugbear, Giganta, etc., and just have an accurate ability to put 1/1s in place. So you're actually netting the same amount if you don't do anything else in your turn, and it looks like Andy wants to do that anyways with the Clarion Spears. We're going to see a block.
Okay. Yep. A little bit of damage coming in through now. Thraben Inspector getting blocked by the Fable. I think. Yeah. Okay. So it goes to the graveyard. Yep. And now, what is this card?
That's a Clarion Spirit. So every time you cast your second spell each turn, you get a 1/1 Spirit token. So you're seeing Andy just sort of dump his hand on the table here, not playing around Shieldred, playing into cards like Extinction Event, but realizes I just have to do something here. We're going to see Fable Chapter 2 as we get a little ramaging, as the French say.
I just had to pause there for a second. I said, "Excuse me, is this like an episode of like Dexter's Lab or something?" Good
like
episode, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks like we just discarded this Graveyard Trespasser. If you're Andy and your opponent only discards one card, you're not in love with it.
Yeah, that must almost certainly signify something like an. Oh no, we're just passing the turn.
We definitely have Bone Crusher Giant in hand. I thought we might have saw an attack and then use the treasure to kill the Clarion Spirit and then cast the 4/3. But looks like Ben has some other plans. Maybe a bunch of kill spells in hand. A little hard playing it close to the chest, talking to his teammates. As it is going to see Dim the Bugbear, as time in the round has been called for the normal players. We have 2 minutes, though, extension in our feature match area.
Okay, this is a little bit alarming, actually. I mean, not spending your mana on the board at all. Giant Killer is going to go ahead and, or the 1 mana side is going to go ahead and tap the treasure token, the Goblin Shaman. And is this a Noxious Grasp?
Yeah, Noxious Grasp here is going to undo a little bit of the damage and get that big knight off the board. Looks like we have another, we have a Stomp too. We're just going to kill the Clarion Spirit now, get that out of the way, and just end up only taking 3 damage here for Ben.
Okay. I really like this, by the way. It seems like we're setting up for a sweeper here. Extinction Event maybe to get rid of all the tokens and the Ornithopter, slow down the game a little bit. But even after that, we're not really in the clear, are we?
Yeah, we're not in the clear, as we've seen all games where things can get out of hand here, as Andy puts Giganta into his hand.
All right. Big cow.
And this is a big part of Pioneer that's different from other formats. The 5/5 body on Giganta is actually relevant. We saw last game, it was just really big and can attack in. And this deck sort of needs one of those big creatures to often help push the damage. We're going to see Thoughtseize. Looks like we have Giant Killer, Land, and Giganta. It looks like Giganta is going to be the pick. Probably signaling no Shieldred in hand there as well. Andy might be able to pick up on that. And it looks like a minute remains in the round.
Yeah, it's getting tense here. Then we're going to have to go to turns. We don't want to be there. So looks like we've flipped the first Fable. 3 mana. We don't have our 5th land drop here. Maybe like 2 cards in hand from the Rakdos side. This is getting really close.
Yeah, the Rakdos player is getting dangerously close to I might just have to play for a draw. I don't know if I can win in turns. And I think last time we didn't play this land because we were playing quickly and sometimes that happens. Looks like we're going to pop a clue here, try and find. Looks like Knight Errant of Eos was the draw. We can actually convoke that for 5.
Well, that's big.
That's so huge on our if it was Knight Errant, we can find more Knight Errants and we can maybe set up for an exact lethal in the final turn. Looks like there's some checking. Maybe there's a life total discrepancy of players wanting to make sure they have the same total. Happens all the time.
No
so
time, no time.
5. Yeah, and speaking of time, I think we're about to hit turn 0 here. It was 1 minute going into the turn of Andy Lane here. And we found another Knight Errant of Eos, Honorog, and the Clarion Spirit. We might be able to set up a huge Bushwhacker turn on turn 5 of turns.
I want to see it here. So what are you thinking about taking then?
Knight Errant of Eos, I think, is the first thing you need because you need to find those combo pieces. Yeah, I like this Resolute Reinforcements. That's just 2 bodies for 1 card. And we're really close, actually, to going off again. I don't think Andy has a bunch of 1-drops, but if Andy has 2 1-drops in hand, we can actually just play the Resolute Reinforcement, 1-drop, Convoke again on Arog, and then we've got a huge board presence out of nowhere.
That's pretty dirty. All right, so we're going to play the reinforcements now, get our 1/1. And there's a Noxious Grasp to kill the Knight. Okay.
Yeah, power word kill, take down the Knight. And that's actually going to matter a ton because as we were just talking about, Andy was setting up 2 maybe Convoke again on this turn. Looks like we're running low on 1/1 tokens. So we have a little bit of a, make it work situation. And he does have this giant killer. It could be important to play it now or hold it for Shieldred. These little lines are what make and break the Convoke games. You just cannot have any small room for error in these sort of games.
Yeah, bet at 9 right now, which means we could just cross the finish line here. I think at this point, now that we are in turns, it seems very, very unlikely that Ben is going to be able to deal the full 18 points of damage without some sort of, sort of even like top decking into a Fable or something like that. That doesn't do it. Like you could make like tokens, but that takes so many turn cycles. So looks like the black die is going to represent what turn we are in. We're going into turn 1.
Yep. And if you're Ben, if you're going to win, it probably involves finding Shieldred and some Wrath effects maybe. But I think winning in this situation is picking up the 1 point for your team.
Yes, I agree. Now, interestingly enough, in the grand scheme of things, draws are not the end of the world because, it's a teams event. There will be lots of draws. But like having the win is just so much better than anything else. So going into turn 2, what needs to happen?
So we have one more turn after this. So this needs to be a turn where we either push a bunch of damage and present lethal, or we set up for lethal. Now we know we have a Night Errant of Eos, and we know we have this Giant Killer. We can actually Giant Killer down the Bone Crusher Giant, which then lets us cast that. We are going to lose a little bit of life. This is actually really helpful too if you're Andy, because the Fable or Mirror Breaker can't copy the Bone Crusher Giant at end of turn, then make another one and try and present this sneaky lethal out of nowhere. And it looks like, Ben's actually going for it now to try and save some more damage, which means he won't be able to push. And then Andy can Convoke on out. And if we can hold up the Giant Killer from, I think there's one from before, right? So we might have end of turn tap down a creature with our 2 mana.
The Stone Cold Nuts coming off this Night Errant of Eos, what are they?
Bushwhacker. And then we draw 0 for turn.
Let's see it. That's not double Bushwhacker, is it? I think I saw a Epicure.
There's definitely an Epicure.
Ooh, don't show me what it is. Andy, don't show me what it is. I don't want to see what it is.
Oh, there's a Bushwhacker.
Okay, wait a minute.
And a Resolute Reinforcements. So that is pretty close to the start of it. And I think, so I'm pretty sure that Giant Killer is in play is the one that's not Summoning Sick. And that's huge here on Rog. That means we can actually tap down something at end of turn, which removes a blocker for Ben. So Ben maybe has to draw Thoughtseize or a board wipe if he's going to actually stay is this game.
Oh, but is Thoughtseize even good here? Because then you're taking more damage, right? So I feel like it's like a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of moment.
Well, Bushwhacker represents a lot more than 2, buddy. I'll let you. I know you're bad at attacking and blocking. It represents about 44 million, I think, is the technical term. So, we have a Shephet Dunes in hand too.
My god.
Oh, and looks like the upkeep, that is the non-summoning stick Giant Killer. The players, made that clear. And so now that Fable or the Mirror Breaker is tapped, and we drew just a shock land. Now, Ben does have Activate Hive of the Eye Tyrant, block, cast Fatal Push as a line, but it's incredibly close here, Anu.
I can feel it. Oh my goodness. All right. So this is turn 3. So there's only one more attack left for both players here. Ben very clearly just playing not to die. Bone Crusher going to come into play now from its adventure. And we got 2 mana left open here. So what's the money move? What are we picking up? What's on top of the deck? I mean, there must be this must be lethal, right?
I think this is a don't get DQ'd moment because we block the 3 biggest creatures. We put 2 more bodies on board, and with the bodies we already have, it's lethal. So, Andy, I think Ben could cheat, put another Fatal Push in hand, and couldn't win. I think we could hand Ben a Fatal Push and he'd be okay.
Wait, are you one-upping the Demonic Tutor challenge into the Apparate stuff into your hand challenge? Because I have never won that one before. That one's kind of tough.
Yeah, that one is tough, but we're in a position where there's Resolute Reinforcements. Yeah, we even make the token first because it's going to gain haste from the Bushwhacker, and that is super duper lethal. The Night will get chump blocked. The biggest creature on board is going to get Fatal Push, and then we chump block the next biggest creature. All of these 1/1s are 2 power, so just 4 of them need to connect. And there's just way more than that many bodies. As you see, Andy Lane win in very impressive all 3 of those games in Rakdos.
Jeez. Wow. All right. Well, That was actually the last match in the round. So welcome back to the booth here if you're just joining us. Wrapping up round number 4. My name's Rakdos. We got Mason Clark here. We're going to take a quick break here because round 5 is literally right around the corner. The action does not stop, and that's going to be our final round together in the booth for today. So what you need to do like
we said, it's the final round. There's one more with us here. Don't worry about it. We're still going to be here, chat. Honorog, I know he's a little scared. We're going to be here. Click the follow button that we don't miss anything. We're going to take our quick break, and we're going to be right back with some more action.
Yes. Excellent.